Hey, what's up, guys? Film Hack Dude here. No, I'm not at Crystal Lake. I'm at a pond behind my house. Yeah, cool little secluded area. Not many people come down here, I don't think. It's kind of closed. You can see that. Anyway, so Friday the 13th, huh? Since all the movies have been on demand lately, I've had a chance to catch up on the ones I hadn't seen or ones I'd seen bits and pieces of. Mostly the middle ones. What the hell is that? Turns out I have seen bits and pieces of all of them. Just couldn't tell which ones. Except for part 5. I don't think I saw that one at all. Not many people have. Yeah, this is going to be kind of just an overview of Friday the 13th. And I'll go into each film a little bit. Nothing too in-depth. I mean, pretty much the same story. All, across the board. But yeah. Some are stronger than others. Definitely one of them. Pretty sure it was part 7. That I think that was the Jason of my generation. That's the one I remember. And so when I saw that, I was like, all the memories started coming back. Hopefully I get out of these woods okay. And what's that? Okay, so in the future I may go through every film and kind of talk about each of them, but I think this is just kind of an overview of the franchise as a whole. That's what I feel like that's all I feel like I can do now. There was definitely some original things that they did in the original, but as they moved on, they realized that they needed something that people would recognize, which clearly is the mask, the hockey mask. That comes in part 3. The bag over the head thing, I mean, they tried it, and it was kind of creepy. The Jason in part 2 is pretty creepy. But the hockey mask is just, as soon as you put it on, it became iconic. So yeah, they did some original things, but they definitely realized, after, the Halloween movies and Nightmare on Elm Street, that they were going to have to do something to make him more identifiable. But yeah, I'd seen the first 3 full the most. I actually own the first one and the third one, and I've just seen the second one on TV mostly. And then it's the sequels after that always got murky for me. I remember seeing Jason Goes to Hell on TV. I saw Jason 10, Jason in Space. I saw that in theaters with some friends when it came out in high school. And thought that was, I think I was in high school. I don't know. I can't remember what year it came out. But we were laughing before the opening titles were even done. I think it was special effects by a company called Toy Box. So that had us going right there. But it was pretty ridiculous. It was pretty dumb. Jason launching rockets and stuff. It was wild. No, I've enjoyed some of the movies over the years. Freddy versus Jason I thought was pretty decent. I saw that in theaters as well, and I thought that was okay. I saw the remake in theaters, which, was all right. I mean, the teen, acting, of course, was the worst part of the movie. But I thought, was it Derek Mears that played him? I thought he did a good job. He was pretty menacing looking. So I've seen the newer ones in theaters and the older ones like on DVD. But parts 4 through Jason Takes Manhattan, so 4 through 8, those were always murky for me. I'd always seen bits and pieces on TV, on AMC around Halloween time, And I never knew which was which. I knew Jason Takes Manhattan. I knew that was 8. I knew, anything shot in the city was that film. But yeah, 4, 5, 6, and 7, I think mostly confused me. I remember being a kid and seeing the scene where Tommy goes out in the boat with the chains and, and he's got the gasoline and he's kind of, trying to coax him out there. That I always thought was cool. I remember being a kid and thinking like, this is a cool scene, and Jason just walks into the water. And so I think I've mostly been interested in seeing that one. So recently, I watched part 6, which is Jason Lives. And that's basically when they bring him back from the dead. And this is where he seems to become the most supernatural of any of the films. This is when he seemed strong and a bit supernatural before that, but this movie brought it to another level. Struck by lightning in the opening, eyes open, maggots and worms all over him. He stands up, and he is like a creature from the other side at this point. So after seeing 6, it wasn't as good as I'd hoped. I'd definitely seen bits and pieces of it before. There's definitely some goofy ass parts to it. The paintball guys, the goofy music. It was kind of just odd. I just didn't quite. It didn't quite do it for me. But I mean, I thought as a movie it was pretty decent. I thought out of all of them, it was all right. It was okay. They tried to tie some kind of story into this one, and I knew Corey Feldman had played Tommy Jarvis previously, so they were finally following a character through the films. But I wasn't sure which ones Tommy Jarvis, Corey Feldman was in. So I knew it must have been 4 or 5 because those are the ones I hadn't really seen. So yeah, 6 was okay, and then I watched 7, The New Blood. So this is when they decided to bring in more of, I guess, another supernatural, or I don't know if you call it telekinesis supernatural or anything, but the girl came, they had the girl with powers, and they don't really go into it that much. They don't explain how she has them. She just has them. And I thought that was kind of neat because they had introduced someone that, could stand up to Jason. And they took a little bit of that from A Nightmare on Elm Street, the Dream Warriors. So you could see the influence there. But that was a pretty solid entry. And the way part 7 starts, with the recap of everything that came before, and especially the recap of part 6, the music was much better in part 7. And as soon as I started watching it, that's what I remember from being a kid. The recap of part 6 I thought was scary in the intro to part 7. That's what I remember seeing. Tommy going out on the boat, and like the fire and everything, and with that music from part 7 behind it. So yeah, I did enjoy part 7 a little bit more than 6. I thought Jason was pretty cool. He was definitely a little bit more sludgy. He'd been under the water for a while. I'm not sure how long. The girl was 12 in the intro when she collapsed the dock. Then she's probably 17 now, so 5 years or so. That is another thing that I'll get into after I go through 4 and 5. The timeline of this series doesn't work or doesn't add up at all. So anyway, 7 I thought was good. 7 was scarier. They seem to have done away with the pointless humor, not completely, but mostly. I thought the kinetic stuff, I thought the telekinetic stuff was pretty cool. And Jason was pretty intimidating. And once again, he ended up in the water, and so I think that's another thing that confused me, because I know he came up out of the water in part 8, so I thought that followed the end of 6. So I always thought that was 7. So yeah, it explained why there was a lot of murkiness there for me. But I did think that was cool how her dad came up at the end, and you know, it was almost like a hero to the story kind of thing. Even though it didn't really make sense. They definitely wouldn't have left that body down there that long. And did it say in the newspaper articles that there was no body found? But it was obviously still right there, so it shouldn't have been that hard to find. But I'm going to look past that. So yeah, I did think that was kind of neat, you know. And so Jason does end up in the water again after that. And but yeah, no, I thought 7 was a pretty strong entry. Jason Takes Manhattan, part 8. This one, as a kid, for some reason, I always thought that this was like probably like a really good movie. I don't know what made me think it was good. Maybe it's just the idea of Jason in New York. I just thought it was really cool. I was too afraid to watch it as a kid. I remember the poster. Yeah, I just remember that and thinking, oh man, that movie's probably awesome. I did notice in the Times Square shots, they definitely shot it in 89 or late 88, because they had the Batman, Tim Burton's Batman banner was up, you know, advertising the movie coming. Yeah, I didn't realize they spent half the movie on a boat on the way to Manhattan, and how Crystal Lake connects with the ocean and goes to Manhattan. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. But I guess it doesn't really have to. He was pretty intimidating in this one as well, and he looked extra sludgy because he'd been underwater for quite some time again. And so this time he looked pretty gross, pretty slimy. He was pretty intimidating in this one. As a movie, I didn't think it was that good at all. The scenes in the city were kind of cool. Like once he finally, you know, once they got to New York and he was chasing them, and I thought, you know, some of those scenes were pretty cool. I always remember as a kid when it was on TV, the only scene I'd ever watched, the only scene I'd ever actually seen, was when the guy was boxing him on the rooftop, and I thought that scene was pretty cool. It was probably always on late, so I could never stay up to watch it, but I always just remember seeing that scene and imagining the rest of the movie being great. But it wasn't. It wasn't that good. The end, when he's chasing him through the sewer, kind of cool, but then it gets flooded with either water or toxic waste. I think the guy said toxic waste. Didn't really look like it, but I mean, I don't know what it looks like. I'm no toxic waste expert. Yeah, the way he just kind of changes into a little kid again, and then does he disappear? I don't really know, because as far as I remember, Jason Goes to Hell starts with him just at the lake, just doing his thing. They never explain how he got back. They never explain how he got the mask back, or how it's damaged, or if it's a new mask. They don't really explain much at all. So I guess that brings us to part 9. So it's been a while since I've seen that one, but I've seen it a couple times, and from what I remember, he gets blown up in the intro. Then there's like the military there. It's kind of a shocking intro, and his heart stays alive, and it makes somebody eat it, and then they become Jason, and then it keeps getting transferred body to body to body, to eventually he's reborn. It's it's pretty stupid. It doesn't really make a ton of sense. I remember when it came out that it was a big deal. Some friends of mine had seen it when it came out, and they told me about the ending, about whoosh, Freddy's glove coming up and grabbing the mask, and I thought that was cool. That was probably the only good part of the movie. But yeah, so that one kind of sucks. So after watching 6, 7, and 8 recently, I'd seen Jason Goes to Hell, Freddy vs. Jason, and the remake multiple times. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna go back and watch 4 and 5 because I don't really know anything about them. I definitely had seen parts of 4. 4 was decent. The acting wasn't that bad. Crispin Glover, of course, he was in there. He's always good. Corey Feldman, that was the intro to him. He was good. They didn't really develop Corey Feldman and his family that well. They almost started to, and then they started focusing on the teenagers, and that was going nowhere. They're all just trying to get with each other, and I think they spent I thought they were going to get into Corey Feldman's family a little bit more, and then they cut to the teenagers. That's another thing I noticed, is the editing in 4 was kind of all over the place. But when I thought they were going to get into the family a little bit more, they just cut back to the teens, and it'd be like 20 minutes of stupidness. So yeah, 4, I thought 4 was pretty decent. Jason escaping the morgue, I mean, that was pretty quick. He was just, in and out. But I thought he was fairly intimidating in that, from what I remember. I think that's when he also started he was pretty tough in that one. He was pretty intimidating. They started to introduce, I noticed, more humor here maybe. I think they started to introduce some goofy humor here. That wasn't much, but there was elements of it. But I thought, the end. I thought the end with Tommy and him, putting the makeup on and shaving his head. And I thought that was kind of neat. Definitely very unrealistic. He wouldn't have had time to do that. But it was a cool twist to make the kid turn him out to be to be the hero. Introducing that Drifter character, I can't remember his name. I feel like it was Paul, but there was another guy named Paul. Maybe it was Dan. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I liked that they introduced him. That was kind of the first time they'd introduced some kind of hero, like someone's there that knows about Jason that's coming to get him. I kind of like that. Unfortunately, they didn't really use him too well, and he was dead before you know it. His first interaction with Jason, just dead. Yeah, this one I thought was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Part 5 was, a lot of people say that one sucked. Did it suck? Yeah, it kind of did. It's like, you spent, it's almost like they tried to recapture some of the stuff from the first one. I think it was titled A New Beginning, and they, it's like they tried to recapture the, who's the killer kind of thing. Because obviously Jason was dead. And this new killer was, somebody, this new killer was somebody among them. They didn't really show him that much. They just kind of showed people kind of getting killed. And it was pretty poorly done. This one, they really started introducing a lot of stupid humor, and it just felt like a waste of time. The mother and son kind of redneck family, they were pretty annoying. Two of the worst characters I've ever seen in a film. The son was just he was just a nutbag. But it's kind of a missed opportunity. They could have done something with this story, like the idea of Tommy being kind of a loose cannon, and going to, I mean, the same lake, probably not a good idea, but I don't even know if it was the same lake. But the idea of him being, kind of crazy, and could have worked. Unfortunately, they just didn't use the pieces that they had. He hardly says a word in the movie. I think you can honestly watch part 4 and then just part 6. You don't even have to watch this one, because the end doesn't make sense at all either. That's one thing I noticed is, he kind of saves him in the end. He kills the Jason copycat and then is in the hospital, only to, in the last scene, go nuts and put the mask on and attempts to kill the doctor. Which doesn't make any sense at all, because when 6 starts, he's grown up, and he's obviously not in jail for killing anybody. He's not really crazy at all. He's acting pretty normal. So they definitely just try to pretend that like that never happened. So would I recommend watching 5? No. I think you could just watch 4 and then watch 6. There's nothing really good in 5, unfortunately. So yeah, the first 3, they're pretty much the classics, and 4, 5, 6, and 7, you could call 4, 5, and 6, you could call the Tommy Jarvis saga, and 7 is a good follow-up to that, and then 8 is if you liked the movies, then yeah, 8's decent. 9's pretty bad. Jason Goes to Hell. And then there's Freddy vs. Jason, which is okay, and then the remake. So they all had something a little to offer, except for 5. 5 sucked. The guy that played Tommy Jarvis was okay. Thought he did a decent job. I wasn't huge. I don't think they should have made him so disturbed and so crazy. It just kind of took away from the character, because you were supposed to be with him the whole time. The kid was cool. So you know what? So I take that back, that there was nothing good in 5. The Reggie, the kid, he was cool. I liked him. He was kind of a hero too. He drove the bulldozer thing right into him, the tractor. So I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, Reggie was the shining part of part 5. All right, so getting into the timeline of these films, none of it makes sense. The first 3, I'm not sure how much time goes by between those, but I know that at least when part 4 happens, it's the early 80s. At the beginning of part 4, they see Jason's mother's tombstone, and she was killed in 79. So this is only about 5-6 years later. So it was let's say that it was the mid 80s, 84, 85. So Tommy's got to be what, maybe, I don't know, 12 or 13 when part 5 comes in. He's significantly aged up. He's probably 17 at this point. So at least 5 years have gone by. So if it was 84, 85, it's already 1990. And then when part 6 happens, he's aged up even more. He looks like he's in his early to mid 20s. So we're talking the early to mid 90s now, and we haven't even gotten to part 7 and 8, which is clearly 80s. So I'm just going to keep going here to show you how the timeline makes no sense. So he's aged up a little bit more. So let's say in part 6, it's the early 90s. When that ends, Jason's in chains, chain around his neck, under the water. And around that time, maybe, I don't know, weeks later, a month later, doesn't matter. It could be a year later. So in the early 90s, that's when the telekinetic girl was there in the boat, and she used her powers and killed her father. So that happened while Jason was in chains, I assume, because if I remember correctly, the shot of him at the bottom of the lake, and then the camera pans up and then deals with their scenario. So that was the early 90s, and then when we cut back, she's aged up. So if she was, let's say, 12, now she's about 17, so 5 more years go by. So now we're in like the mid to late 90s when part 7 is supposedly taking place, which clearly is not the case at all. So when that movie ends, it's the late 90s, part 8 picks up. Does that look like the late 90s to you? No, it's clearly the 80s still. So it doesn't even matter if a week went by. It still doesn't make any sense. So yeah, none of the timelines at all don't make sense in these movies. They clearly came out a year or two apart. It was 84, 85, 86, 88, 89, whatever. But ultimately, they're fairly enjoyable movies if you like that kind of thing. I'm not too much into the gore. I do like, a bit of story, and the sense of dread that these movies create is pretty cool. But I'm glad I watched all of them. I can at least have an opinion about the entire franchise now. And I don't know if they'll make any more, but I'll probably see it if they do. So I guess that's pretty much all I have to say about the Friday the 13th franchise. Jason's a cool character. Definitely had some misses there with part 5. Just quickly going from 1 through Freddy vs. Jason. 1, solid. I'd watch that one. Part 2, pretty good. Part 3, decent. The intro of the mask. Part 4, I thought was actually pretty good. That's a definite. Part 5, don't bother. So, don't bother with part 5. Just don't bother. It's not worth it. The best scene is the opening scene with Corey Feldman, and it's a dream. So, spoiler. Part 6, decent. That one was okay, except for the corny humor in it was pretty bad, but mostly it was alright. 7 was good. I think 7, honestly, is probably my favorite of all of them. It's the best Jason, probably the best look. I think 4 and 7 are my favorites. And then 8, maybe watch it once. If you liked, 6 and 7, then maybe watch 8. Jason Goes to Hell sucks. Only if you really like. Oh no, you know what? I was gonna say it's kind of like 5, because you don't really get to see Jason that much. It's just somebody else doing stuff. It's Jason, his essence, but it's not that good. And then Jason 10, I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember it just sucks, so I wouldn't bother with that. And then Freddy vs. Jason, pretty good. I'd watch that again. And the remake's decent. Derek Mears is good as Jason. Sometimes the screaming and the yelling and all that stuff is a little over the top. The teenagers are annoying. But Derek Mears does do a good job as Jason. That Jared Padalecki, or I'm not sure how to say his name, he's pretty decent in it. So it's got strong points, but yeah, I'd say the best ones are part 7, the first one, the second one, and the fourth one. I think those are my favorites of them all. So yeah, so all I have to say about the Friday the 13th franchise. If you enjoyed this, come on back. I'll try to get in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise before Halloween, and then right before Halloween, I want to do the Halloween franchise, which is my favorite. I've seen all those movies a number of times, as you can see. I'm a big fan. So yeah, I'm the Film Hack Dude. Take it easy. We'll see ya.